All right, folks, good morning. Let's get started. Sorry, I'm running a little late here, but all right, for today, Friday, May 10th, we have the following. FOMC member Bauman is speaking at 9 o'clock Eastern. At 10 a.m., we'll have preliminary U of M consumer sentiment and preliminary U of M inflation expectations. Mortgage delinquencies, we don't know when that's going to be reported. At 1:30 p.m., we have FOMC member Barr speaking, which is not expected to have a major impact, but you never know. And then at 2 p.m., we'll have federal budget balance, which is also not expected to have a major impact, but again, we never know. My expectation is that it's possible the FOMC member speaking at 1:30 might affect the markets, but it'll be at 1:30, so not a critical time in the trading day. And that's that. All right, so having said that, let's take a look at the NASDAQ and see where things are at. So the NASDAQ ETF currently is trading higher than where it closed yesterday. Yesterday's action was mostly neutral. We had some down, some up, but pretty much the market opened and closed near the same place. So it looks like we're poised to open slightly higher today, but we'll see how things play out. Once the opening bell rings, we might come down before then. All right, having said that, taking a look at the stocks which were active yesterday on our radar, we had DraftKings, which was able to reach its target number 2 to the upside of 44.02, but it took all the way till market close to get there, but it did reach it. We had Starbucks, which was a much faster move up. Starbucks reached target number 2 to the upside of 75.03 very quickly, then gradually went higher after that to peak somewhere above 75.70. Um, Next up, we have, sorry, uh, next up we have DoorDash, which we found, it took a little while to find this one, but it was a nice move up. It reached target number 1 to the upside of 114.80, and then it got more than 90% of the way to target number, well, more than 80% of the way to target number 2 to the upside, which was 116.60, but never reached it. It topped out. Um, Stock topped out at 116.36. Okay. Next up, we have AMD. AMD was bearish. It did not reach target number 1 to downside. It reached a low of 150.61. So within 1 penny of target number 1 to the downside. Then after that, it refused to go any lower. Um, Amazon was all over the place. This was not one that played out well, but at first it was up, then it sharply declined, then it went back up, but eventually it did reach its target number 1 to the upside. But this was not something I was watching closely after that initial decline, simply because that's not the way it's supposed to play out. We're looking for stocks that are more consistent. Mondelez was bearish, but as you can see, it did something similar to Amazon. At first, it was down. It reached target number 1 to downside 70.07. We were looking for it to continue below that, but what it did instead is it reversed all the way back up to its YCTO at the time, then came back to target number 1 to the downside. It went a little bit past that, but not very far, so not a good trend there. Just noting that there was no good trend on that one. Nvidia was a good trend down. We found that early on its way to target number 1 to the downside. We got that very early, actually. So it reached target number 1 to the downside of 885.06. Then after that, wasn't able to go any lower. Similarly, Lyft was able to go down to target number 1 to the downside of 1733. And we only caught the latter small portion, that maybe about 20 cents of that move. After that, the stock did go below target number 1, but only about 40% of the way to target number 2, and it didn't trend at all. So that was it. And then lastly, we had Tesla. Well, Tesla took the long winding route, but eventually it reached target number 1 to the downside of 171.80. but it was a very bumpy ride at first and it smoothed out later. All right, having said that, looking at the pre-market, I'm just going to rocket through these guys. We have a number of them, so I'm just going to rocket through these as quickly as possible. All right, so first up is AEHL. Currently not up enough. It was up enough earlier, but not right now, so we'll skip that one. LIDR. Oh, sorry, wait a minute. Correction. Let me go back. Sorry, it is down enough. AEHL is down 21.74% on 1.5 million shares. It's at least $1 per share. Sorry, correction. So that is down enough. We'll add that to our pre-market radar for stocks. Next up was LIDR, which is currently up 35.83% on 7.2 million shares and at least $1 per share. So we'll add that to the pre-market radar. Next up is MGNX, down 69.6% on 1.8 million shares, and it's at least $1 per share. So we'll add that to the pre-market radar. Next up is NVAX, Novavax, which is currently up 115% on about 31 million shares, and at least $1 per share. This is up after earnings. It also looks like it reached some milestones, so we'll add NVAX to our pre-market radar. Next up is SGBX, which is currently up 12.3% on 1.6 million shares, and it's at least $1 per share. So we'll add that to the pre-market radar as well. Next up is SoundHound, currently up 14.95% on 2.9 million shares and at least $1 per share. So we'll add SOUN. Next up is SRTS, presently up about 30%, 3.2 million shares, and it's at least $1 per share. So we'll add that to our pre-market radar. And lastly, we have WISA, currently up 21%, 3.2 million shares. That qualifies as well. I'm just looking at the ones you guys mentioned. AEMD, that's up about 30%, 6.2 million shares, at least $1 per share. So AEMD is added. We already have LIDR, SRTS, WISA, yep, MGNX, etc. We have all those. Okay, so we'll go ahead and wrap up for today since we've already covered all the stocks that were mentioned. Please be sure to like this video. We have 7 likes, but more than 7 people watching. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That greatly helps us with the YouTube algorithm. If anyone's watching this video on a replay, check out fundertrading.com, our website. You'll see a link in the description of this video. Other than that, for everyone else who's part of the coaching program, I'll see you there in about 25 minutes. Otherwise, folks, have a great weekend. I'll see you for Monday's Pre-Market Pulse. Take care.